Breaking news, the front is heating up. Our forces have scorched the enemy in several directions at once. One Grad down and enemy weapons destroyed in the east. New allied equipment is entering the battle. Secret missiles. Putin's mercenaries are trapped in a cauldron, at last an exclusive from the front lines. Is the enemy really retreating? All this in our episode Hell Point. The Russians relaxed too soon and got what they deserved. In the Siverskyi region, the skies are under the control of Ukrainian defenders. Anti-aircraft drones are tearing the enemy apart, literally into pieces. Powerful resistance. Russia still hasn't learned its lesson and keeps making the same mistakes. The occupiers have crumbled from such disgrace. The most precise strikes by our drone operators are coming up next in the report.
This is how an anti-aircraft drone heads out on another hunt. Meanwhile, the crew is preparing to search for a target.
Our friendly sophisticated radar unit, which detects enemy targets, gave us a target indication that an enemy UAV is approaching our area of responsibility. So yes, we're going to take off, intercept, and engage it.
The crew only receives approximate coordinates a certain grid square where movement has been detected. Next, you have to look very carefully to spot the right dot in the sky, get closer, and identify the target. This time, it was a false alarm. It turned out to be a friendly drone.
That's our boomerang wing.
These anti-aircraft drone operators from the NGU Rubish Brigade are hunting Russian birds in the Siverskyi direction. They use regular FPV drones, but with certain modifications tailored to their specific role. The unit has already destroyed more than 30 targets. These include reconnaissance wings like Orlans, Supercams, Zalas, as well as strike drones such as Molnias or the so-called Privets. However, lately, hitting targets has become more difficult. Enemy pilots often manage to evade attacks. Plus, the enemy is constantly improving their equipment.
Zala drones are very actively used for reconnaissance purposes because they are maneuverable, fast, and many of them are already equipped with some kind of electronic warfare systems, like a mirror device that simply cuts off your video feed, or sometimes they even install electronic warfare systems that can disable your drone's wings. For example, just yesterday we had a situation where the guys were chasing a Zala, 6 crews were after it, and unfortunately no one could catch up.
The soldier with the call sign Donbas is one of the most experienced anti-aircraft drone operators in the unit, although he only started working in this area in October of last year. But during this time, he has managed to study the enemy's behavior well.
They have a noticeable pattern. That is, they operate starting early in the morning, from around 4:30 and until about 11, they are very active. Then war is war. But lunch is on schedule, they have a lull for about 3 or 4 hours, meaning their activity is very sluggish, and then in the evening, more serious activity starts up again.
But in addition to experienced pilots, the unit is also being reinforced by young people, like the fighter with the call sign Kremin. Now, the 24-year-old pilot is just mastering his new specialty. Before this, he was a manpads operator. He decided to try his hand at UAVs, since that's what the situation at the front requires. His comrades are a huge help in adapting.
It's really great to have experienced comrades. They help you with this, both morally and with advice. And you feel much, much better. I feel like I'm in the right place. I'm growing, I'm learning.
Electronic warfare has a significant impact on the fight in the sky. In areas where the enemy has an advantage in this technology, the work of our drone operators becomes much more difficult. And to make the work of Russian pilots unbearable, you can support the Rubish Brigade's fundraiser for electronic warfare equipment. After all, every neutralized UAV means a life saved.
Lives are at stake here, the lives of the guys. We're not complaining about our work, we're sitting in a relatively safe place, so, we have to do everything that depends on us.
Yegor Romaklo, Oleksiy Yevchenko, and Yuri Ostapchuk. Fakty, ICTV, United News.
It has finally happened. Britain has made up its mind. Tons of military aid. These missiles will take out Russian drones the fastest. They hit their targets with pinpoint accuracy. Now everything will change on the front line. The Allies have run out of patience. What top secret weapon is already at the ready and will finally wipe out the occupiers? We'll tell you all about it in the following report.
The Rapid Ranger air defense system provides high mobility and a quick response to threats. The target detection range exceeds 15 kilometers and the effective engagement range is over 7 kilometers. The system can be integrated with any command and control system. A distinctive feature of this module is that it can be mounted on either wheeled or tracked vehicles. The Rapid Ranger weighs less than 500 kilograms. The system is equipped with 4 ready-to-fire Martlet missiles, which will also be procured from Britain. The lightweight, multi-purpose Martlet missiles weigh about 13 kilograms and have a 3-kilogram warhead. The Martlet missiles have a range of 8 kilometers. The missiles are guided exclusively and precisely by a laser beam system, as they use a semi-active homing head technology.
Agent Brew.
It has a low speed, that's one. The operator has enough time to aim at the target and it's not even necessary to track the target the whole time, right? Hold it for 3 seconds, the laser system locks onto the target. After that, what is called machine guidance takes over. As it approaches the target, the guidance switches to infrared mode. Yes, that is, when it's close to the target, even the heat flow from a piston engine is already significant enough, right? So the missile will home in on its own. Even if the operator loses the target at some point, the missile will guide itself to the target.
The missile can engage various targets, from lightly armored vehicles to fortifications, drones, and both aerial and ground targets.
If, for example, a strike is planned against an armored target using laser guidance in a ground-to-ground scenario, then a missile with a shaped charge warhead can be used. If the target is infantry, a missile with a thermobaric or fragmentation warhead can be used. If the target is a Shahed drone, for example, then obviously a typical anti-aircraft fragmentation warhead with specially shaped striking elements is used.
This assistance is significant because thanks to the help from Britain and the air defense systems they provided, such as the Starstreak, which are similar to the Rapid Ranger, the Ukrainian armed forces were already shooting down enemy Mi-8 helicopters back in 2022.
We were able to build a multi-layered defense that includes short-range systems like manpads, medium-range surface-to-air missile systems such as Osa and Buk, and long-range systems like the S-300. In other words, by combining these systems and establishing a multi-layered air defense, we forced the enemy to really hunker down because they suffered significant losses in aviation and began to act much more cautiously, but at the same time far less effectively.
On May 25, Kyiv and London signed a $1 billion arms agreement. It was stated that the funds would be used to purchase foreign-made defense products and to acquire critically important materials, including products made in Ukraine. In June, the United Kingdom announced a record aid package involving the supply of drones. We are talking about £350 million, which will allow Ukraine to receive 100,000 drones already this year.
We are grateful to our British partners for their exceptional support, which helps us bring a just peace closer.
Europe is falling behind. To Ukraine's level, a bold statement from the US military. The Ukrainian armed forces are better prepared. Taiwan will start using Ukrainian drones. Cutting-edge technologies. Russia is up to something, even more cruise missiles from the Black Sea. A shortage of combat aircraft. Is Putin really running out of steam? We'll talk about this in just a moment.
Ukrainian drone software is entering the global market. Taiwan is purchasing Ukrainian drone software that destroys Russian equipment. The agreement was signed with the company Autelion, whose software is actively used by the armed forces of Ukraine. The goal of the cooperation is to strengthen Taiwan's defense capabilities amid the growing military threat from China. Ukraine's combat experience is turning into an export product. Modern swarm drone software, developed and tested by Ukrainian operators during the war, is becoming the foundation for defense solutions in other countries. The latest systems make it possible to launch dozens or even hundreds of drones that operate autonomously, even under conditions of electronic warfare. If the drone loses connection with the operator, it does not stop, but continues to carry out its mission according to a preset algorithm. The system takes into account the target's behavior, possible maneuvers, and weather conditions. This software solution is scalable for drones of various classes, from lightweight quadcopters to strike platforms. In the future, it can be integrated into air defense systems, maritime surveillance, and autonomous reconnaissance. A contract for the deployment of such systems in Asia confirms that Ukraine today is not only a battlefield but also a global laboratory for modern warfare, whose technologies are becoming the foundation of other countries' defense. The Ukrainian army as a benchmark for NATO. Retired US Army General Ben Hodges believes that it is NATO that should be learning from the armed forces, not the other way around. He stated this in an interview with the Kyiv Post. The former US commander in Europe emphasized that most NATO armies today do not reach the level of combat effectiveness demonstrated by the defense forces of Ukraine. For the third year now, the Ukrainian army has been operating under conditions of full-scale war and continues to impress Western analysts with its resilience, speed of adaptation, and technological approach. The armed forces of Ukraine have learned not only to quickly integrate Western weaponry, but also to independently develop and deploy advanced solutions, from networked air defense systems to surface drones, and the coordination of attacks involving FPV drones. These technologies are created and refined directly in combat, unlike many NATO armies that lack experience fighting an equal adversary. The Ukrainian command employs approaches based on decentralization, tactical level initiative, and digital coordination. That is why the model of the armed forces of Ukraine is considered one of the most combat capable in the modern military environment. More and more Western experts acknowledge today Ukraine has much to teach the alliance. Meanwhile, in the Lyman direction, fighters from a unit specializing in FPV drones continue systematic strikes on the rear positions of Russian troops. The main objective is to destroy vehicles, command posts, equipment and observation positions. This approach disrupts logistics and leaves the enemy blind and immobile. The enemy loses equipment and the ability to move effectively, as well as coordination of actions on the front line. Strikes on observation posts and relays significantly complicate artillery adjustment and aerial targeting. The use of FPV drones makes it possible to carry out pinpoint strikes with minimal costs and high precision. This is one of the most effective tools of asymmetric warfare, which the Russian army still cannot cope with. Meanwhile, Russia has intensified its strikes from the sea. The fleet is operating more frequently than usual. Since the beginning of June, there have already been 2 massive strikes with cruise missiles launched from Black Sea Fleet ships. This is twice as many as before. Previously, sea launches occurred about once a month. Such activity may indicate a change in tactics. It is likely that Russia is trying to compensate for increasing losses in aviation, taking into account both aircraft and trained crews. At the same time, the capabilities for sea launch strikes remain limited. The number of missiles on board each carrier is small, and preparing for a launch requires time and concealment. Nevertheless, the increase in the number of sea-based attacks may indicate that the Russian General Staff is looking for new ways to carry out strikes in the face of a shortage of other resources. This also complicates the work of Ukrainian intelligence and air defense, since attacks from the sea require separate monitoring and response. That's all for today. Tune in tomorrow for the next news update.
Exclusive footage from the Sumy region. The enemy is unleashing a barrage of fire. KVs are flying in swarms. Putin's mercenaries are pressing forward. Emergency evacuation. The border area is on fire. See what's happening there right now in the following report.
In the village of Khutin, the center of the community, more than 2,000 people lived here until recently. Now the streets are empty. As of last week, about 40 people still remained here. There were also those who would come here from time to time to look after their property. But there were fewer and fewer of them each time, because the intensity of enemy strikes kept increasing. People started leaving actively when Russian troops entered the neighboring village of Kindrativka. It's 6 kilometers from there to Khutin.
How do I know they entered Kindrativka? Because they post photos. We see these houses. Natasha Miller writes, oh, they're in our house. Look, photos, both of ours. Everything's there.
The head of the community also lived in Kindrativka until the very end. His house was shelled multiple times since the beginning of the war. But when the enemy actually crossed the state border, he had to leave. Were there many people who left on foot?
Well, the people of Kindrativka are a unique bunch. I'm from there myself. We already knew that the Russians themselves had entered those houses, and there were still more than 100 people staying there. No, well, Kindrativka is not here.
According to the head of the community, only 2 men remained in Kindrativka. Contact with them was lost a few days ago. Beyond Kindrativka is Khutin, the center of the community.
There's one KAB bomb, there's another KAB bomb. Right in the center. See? You see how big this crater is?
The enemy didn't spare air bombs here, hitting heavily and even publishing videos of the strikes. The center is very badly damaged. The Russians used cabs here. These were 1 500-kilogram KAB bombs. That's why the destruction is so extensive, and the familiar school, church and library now look like this. The village council is now locked up. The most valuable things, the head says, have been taken out of there.
I took down the flag. The very last time I went there, I can still vividly remember thinking to myself, I'll take the flag with me just to be safe, because there's always a chance that they might come in and start mocking or making fun of the flag. I took the flag and the call of arms.
From Sumy region, Olesya Borovik, Alexander Oleksienko, We Ukraine, the United News Marathon.
Right now, there's a tough sweep going on. The Ukrainian armed forces gave the Russian soldiers a real beating. Captured armor is now firing at the occupiers. These strikes were caught on video. They wanted to use chemical weapons in Donbas, but ended up in a trap. The enemy's equipment is burning. Russian commanders are in a panic. Our forces are literally mowing down the enemy soldiers. You'll find out where it's hottest right now in just a moment. Scorpion struck enemy targets near Vovchansk. Fighters from the Guard Brigade destroyed vehicles, 2 Muromem long-range visual surveillance systems, and the communications antenna. In addition, the unit's mortar teams and drone operators shelled the occupiers' strongholds. Both the guards serving in the Vovchansk direction are preparing for battles, training on difficult terrain and mastering everything from basic weapon handling skills to lightning-fast assaults, starting with blank ammunition.
After people have successfully completed a certain required training course, as required by regulations, they are then granted permission by the relevant authorities to clear trench lines with live ammunition.
In the north of the Kharkiv region, the tank battalion of the 92nd Assault Brigade is striking the enemy with captured armor, as if to say, what you brought, you get back in return. And thanks to the efforts of the Phoenix unit, the occupiers will be left without vehicles and shelters along with their infantry. The video shows a selection of enemy equipment engulfed in flames. And these are the latest hits from the 3rd Assault Brigade. The invaders tried to hide and flee, hoping to survive, but the drone operators had other plans. In the Lyman direction, the Muscovites are being blown up by Baba Yaga drones operated by pilots from the 63rd Brigade. Night, anti-drone cloaks, trees and trenches do not save the enemy, as heavy bombers come for their souls. Some of the occupiers, seeing no way out, prudently hide in black body bags. However, more and more often the invaders are choosing captivity over certain death. When Russian commanders send their soldiers in small groups into a trap, they are cut off from logistics for weeks, left without food or ammunition. In the Kramatorsk sector, the Revenge Brigade unit struck enemy FPV drones as well as ambushes numerous vehicles, including motorcycles and the field ammunition depot. Fierce fighting continues in the Turetsk sector. Among those holding positions here are the Predators, a unit of the patrol police.
In the Pokrovsk direction, the enemy carried out offensive actions in the areas of the settlements of Koptivka, Malinivka, Myrolyubivka, Promin, Lisivka, Zvirov, and Udakhne. The invaders also tried to break through our defenses near Andreevka and Oleksivka. Our units continue to destroy the enemy's superior forces in order to slow down and hold their offensive actions.
The Pokrovsk direction remains the most hellish. Donbas's hornets continue to turn into ashes the transport junk that the occupiers race around the forest belts in. And here our defenders from the 28th Brigade are training on two-wheelers. Previously assaults were carried out under the cover of armor, but now under the roar of engines. A motorcycle means speed, maneuverability, and the ability to reach places where an armored personnel carrier can't go or a drone can't fly.
Right now, the situation at the front is such that you have to cover a lot of kilometers on foot. But with motorcycles, you can get there much faster.
In the Novopavlivka direction, the Reapers of the 23rd Separate Mechanized Brigade continue to skillfully destroy enemy equipment. The warriors guarantee the occupiers only injuries, mutilation, or death on our land. Thanks to the efforts of pilots from 3 Defense Force units, a Russian MLRS was destroyed. The Heat Grad was likely loaded with chemical munitions, as indicated by intercepted conversations among the Russians themselves. Although the aggressor country is a party to the Convention on the Prohibition of Chemical and Biological Weapons, it has used them more than once and still possesses large stockpiles. Our fighters also destroyed a Pion self-propelled artillery system and a truck loaded with ammunition near Novokrenka. The missile strike was adjusted by the Chorny Lis Aerial Reconnaissance Brigade. With faith in our fighters, Tetiana Litvin, Interdetails, United News Marathon.
First, drones hover over the positions, followed by a frenzied swarm of motorcyclists. In Donetsk region, the Russians are using a new tactic, trying to break through the Ukrainian armed forces' defenses both from the air and on wheels. But our defenders are not falling behind. They act proactively and strike hard. A hellish battle, heavy losses, and a blazing Pokrovsk regional of this is now the epicenter of the confrontation. More about the situation on the front line in the following report.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Command post, it's actually fine. Yes.
An enemy FPV drone explodes behind him. Amazingly, the soldier managed to turn his head away just in time.
FPV drones, no joke with kid around.
Everything was caught on camera. I have a helmet like this, made of fiberglass.
And here is the hero of that video himself, a reconnaissance National Guard soldier from the Rubizhna Brigade, call sign Chaika. He now recalls that incident with a smile, though he understands he was very lucky.
If we had started turning earlier, he would have come up behind us or hit us from the side. There would have been no chance to dodge.
Almost a year ago, our colleague Maria Malevska filmed Chaika in Lipchi, Kharkiv region during the Russian counteroffensive. He showed how the enemy was mercilessly wiping out the settlement with guided aerial bombs. At that time, fighters were urgently redeployed from Donetsk region to stop the enemy advance.
The impact site, according to preliminary data, was hit by a FAB 3000.
That's what the Russians claim, that they supposedly struck with a FAB 3000.
Yes, that's according to data from the Russian Federation. But as we can see, in terms of the size of the defense plant itself, it looks more like a FAB 1500, FAB 1000.
Now Chaika is once again holding the line in Donetsk region near Pokrovsk, and walking freely in the streets like it was in Liptsi is impossible here. Everything is about drones. The enemy is trying to encircle the city and put it in a ring, pressing on the flanks, burning everything with KABs, launching assaults and engaging in close combat.
Motorcyclists are getting into our rear. The front line is simply quite large, and there are gaps between positions.
They try to get through these positions into settlements, into tree lines, and then they just start getting killed by drops, by FPV drones. But one or two might still make it through, and then we'll have to clear them out again.
And here one of the prisoners is talking to his commander over the radio.
You all need to gather together. All of you need to gather together. One person was supposed to run across. So, did you receive me? No? Then you'll have to crawl.
I'm really honestly shocked by how they send their people. They have absolutely no way back. Truly no other options at all. Only the option to move forward step by step. So he said, well, that's it, I'm going back. But his company or platoon commander, without any hesitation, immediately told him, if you go back, we will have no choice but to wipe you out completely and without hesitation.
The fighter with the call sign Simka is only 25. He came to the front when he was still very young during the JFO in 2019. He defended the Svitlodarsk Bulge. He also faced the full-scale invasion in the east. He fought in Luhansk region near Severodonetsk. Now, his main task is to quickly and safely deliver soldiers to their positions, and this is a task with an asterisk.
Speed plays a big role. The minimum is 150, 140. In this war, the faster you go, the better. FPV, drones come in, Mavics control you, they adjust whether it's mines or artillery that's coming in. Vehicles are expendable material.
Meanwhile, while the fighters are holding the front line, cities in Donetsk region are digging in. The enemy will try to capture the region over the summer. So, in order not to lose it, everyone has to do something about it. The fighters are convinced. And not to stop donating, because without support from the rear, it will be impossible to hold back the enemy. Ole Kornienko, Zahar Komachak, TSTV, United News.
These tanks do not just move, they crash into the earth like the thunder of war. The trucks tear up the ground, everything around trembles, their raw strikes panic into the enemy, and their shots are like thunder from the sky, already etched into history. The steel wolves of the armed forces of Ukraine charge into battle at full speed. Wherever they pass, only dust remains of the enemy positions. Take a look at how it happened.
The platoon commander with the call sign Skala came to the tanko from the infantry.
The hardest part was understanding this machinery, becoming one with it, you and the machine. That was the most difficult thing.
Now, he says he drives a tank no worse than his own car. Knowing your equipment perfectly is a matter of principle for a soldier. When you're on familiar terms with the manuals, everything gets done quickly. The counteroffensive proved that. Back then, they even managed to capture some armored trophies.
My partner and I personally drove off two BMPs, a BMP-1 and a BMP-2. That was near Balaklia. They were in working condition, fully loaded with ammunition.
Tank crews even have a special kind of dugout. We haven't seen anything like it at any other positions. The soldiers have set up perfect order here and created an almost homey comfort.
This is how they hide, how the units or rifles are hidden. In my view, every serviceman should feel a bit of home, a sense of home. And we did this with our own hands.
Andriy, with the call sign Loki, joined the unit from agribusiness a year ago. He's responsible for supply and logistics, because that's the lifeblood of a combat vehicle. But if needed, he assures he can also take the controls himself.
Regardless of our positions, yes, we often cover for each other in many ways. And of course, if there's a task, everyone jumps in at the same time, whether it's a battle or some other activity. That's why we do everything together.
Another Andriy with the call sign Sokil is training on his tank in conditions close to combat. He has been in the military for 9 years already.
He was a rifleman, a grenadier, and a controller. And now he has received the position of tank commander.
They spent 6 weeks studying the combat vehicle at the training ground first. Then came independent work and adapting to the new realities of war.
We welded on this kind of protective anti-drone, anti-cumulative grid. It was welded onto the turret and the hull. On top, of course, is the anti-drone protection. This is the factory installed reactive armor. Inside it, there are two plates that deflect the cumulative jet.
Because a tank is power and strength, it can fire up to 4 kilometers, take out armored vehicles, and destroy artillery installations. However, it is very vulnerable to modern drones.
Well, artillery too. Drones are flying, they see us, and they adjust the artillery.
Nowadays, we increasingly have to work from covered positions, but when we move out into open areas, you need composure and quick reflexes. Whoever spots the enemy first wins the battle.
If you see them shoot, the main thing is to suppress the enemy with fire. They're not titans over there either. They're just as scared as we are when they're shooting and explosions.
And after the job is done, you have to quickly hide the armored giant?
Nowadays, you understand the drones can detect heat, so it's very hard to hide.
And the tank?
You can use branches, but you know yourself, if it's been moving, the drone's camera will still pick up the heat. No matter how well you camouflage it, the heat signature will still be there.
All the training and thorough preparation are for one purpose. If needed, the Steel Wolves are ready to immediately move out to defend Kharkiv.
This is our city, we will defend it. The order will come and we'll go into battle. We will go.
Svetlana Shekra, Alexander Janovsky, Podrobnosti, Inter-TV channel, Marathon, United News.
That's all I have for you today. I was your host, Darina Hutsakalo. Even more coaching news from the front in our next broadcast. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you soon.